Hello, this is QTV News and I am Umudu Gajaga, and thank you for joining us. We are coming to you live from our studios along Karaba Avenue. Here are first the main local and sports news headlines. The State House has announced that President Barrow will be traveling to Dubai on a working visit. As the Gambia prepares to host the 2022 Organization of Islamic Conference, our reporter visited the OIC Secretariat to find out about the projects that are to be implemented. The TRRC hears that the inclusion of draconian laws in the Gambia's constitution gave former President Jammeh powers of a monarch. The Independent Electoral Commission held its second monthly stakeholders forum. In sports news, the Minister of Defense on Thursday presented a significant amount of sporting materials to the Gambia Armed Forces. Those were the main news headlines, and now the news in detail, and thanks for joining us. Welcome. If you're just joining us, this is QTV News and I'm Umudu Gajaga. First, we start at the State House. State House has announced that President Barrow will be traveling to Dubai on Saturday, the 3rd of April 2021, on a 5-day walking visit at the invitation of Private Office of His Highness Sheikh Marwan bin Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum of Dubai and the United Arab Emirates. Among other matters, the President and his delegation will explore possible partnerships to promote and strengthen public-private partnership to enhance socio-economic development. And as the Gambia prepares to host the 2022 Organization of Islamic Conference Summit in Banjul, there have been questions about the infrastructural developments that stakeholders should work ahead of the hosting of the summit. Our reporter Babakar C visited the OIC Secretariat to find out about the projects that are to be implemented. And here is his report.
After a tour of the 50-kilometer feeder routes with the contractors, there has been speculations in the media and on social media with some labeling the OIC a failure. Many have gone as far as to fear that the summit will be postponed again. They leveled the criticism that there has been no sign of work commencing on any of the major projects, which are expected to take a long time to complete. These include building the roads, hotels, and the VVIP lounge at the airport, among others. With the summit date fast approaching, the demand to see evidence of the work is rising. In response to some social media posts, some have asked, when will we see the start of work on our roads and not the never-ending site visits? Well, QTV visited the OIC Secretariat for an exclusive chat with the head of brand and communication, Fali Fadera, and I began by asking him about the projects and when exactly people can expect to see physical work starting on the expansion of the roads.
It is not correct to say we are not doing anything. In fact, the contrary is what is happening. As you rightly alluded to not long ago, we've had multiple site visits for prospective contractors for our different roads, particularly the road component, for different projects, particularly the road component. So to me, that in itself signals to the fact that we are working. I can understand people want to see actual work happening, seeing heavy machines, caterpillars, moving from place to place doing stuff.
Mr. Fadera also responded when asked about the publicly expressed fear that the Gambia may lose the rights to host the summit again if the infrastructural development are not concluded on time. According to Fali Fadera, this is not the case, as the summit can go ahead while the construction can be completed at any time, and most importantly is the completion of the state-of-the-art conference center that can host the summit.
The OIC projects are transformational. We like to call them legacy projects, projects that will be here long after the summit is done. Because the summit, come what may, it may not be more than 5 days, you understand. But the projects that we are doing in preparation for the summit will be here with us for a very long time. So that is the way that we approach these things. So some of the projects that we have, even if they are not ready in time before the summit, we can always continue implementing them because they will be here. The funds have been secured 100% for them, especially the road component. So whether or not the entire road project is done, definitely the summit will definitely take place, and it will be here to benefit us for the long run. So we are definitely well on course, and I would like to emphasize this to you and to the viewers, that we are so on course to making sure that the Gambia is fully prepared to host the OIC Heads of State and Government Conference Summit in 2022.
The Brand and Communication Officer of the OIC reassures the public that the funds needed to construct our roads and other infrastructures have been secured, but states that the failure to complete them on time cannot stop the country from hosting the summit, especially after completion of the Sadauda Kairaba Conference Center. Babu Karsi, QTV News.
The Independent Electoral Commission IEC on Thursday held its second monthly forum with stakeholders like the civil society organizations and the media to brief them on the status of the country's electoral process. Our Omar P. Jala was there, and this is his report.
The meeting brought together civil society organizations and media practitioners and provide a platform to update stakeholders on the electoral process. It also provides a timeline for the next general voter registration, scheduled to commence on the 29th of May and conclude on the 11th of July 2021, and also address the recent submission of the 2021 election bill to the National Assembly. Addressing the participants, the IEC chairman Ali Momar Njai said the monthly dialogue serves as a platform for regular information sharing and exchange ideas among electoral stakeholders, giving participants the opportunity to discuss a range of burning issues on the political horizon ahead of the upcoming voter registration exercise.
Ours is the most transparent in the world. Unlike all other countries where we have 2-3 days to announce results, for us, ours is done within 2-3 hours after when voting ends. And it's done so transparently that the party agents, the party leaders, will know the results well before I, as a result of it, will announce it.
The Chief Electoral Officer, Sambu Jangjai, used the opportunity to denounce the rumors circulating regarding the number of registered political parties, saying currently there are only 17 registered political parties, and urged participants to always seek clarification from the IEC, as failure to do this may result in speculation, fake news and misinformation about the IEC and its activities. On the general voter registration, CEO Njai said it will last for 44 days, Mondays to Sunday, in the 730 registration centers across the country by the 220 registration teams. Talking on the requirement of the registration, Njai said all applicants must register in person, must be Gambian, must be 18 years by the day of the election, and must present a passport, national identity card, birth certificate or an alcalo attestation.
Who is not qualified to register? According to law, is somebody who is in prison. You are not qualified to register. Somebody who is a judge to be of sound mind or classified as a criminal lunatic, or somebody who is disqualified by any law of this country. When you say by any law of this country, it means somebody who for one reason or the other is being disqualified by a competent court of law from registering or participation in the electoral process. And sometimes people will ask, which kind of law? This is not a law, but it could be a court judgment. If you have conducted or involved in an electoral malpractice or fraud or rigging, sometimes the court can declare you or bar you from participating in the electoral process, and that becomes law.
On the issue of diaspora Gambians voting, Njai said the IEC is very particular and concerned about enfranchising them and assure them of their participation in the upcoming elections.
The IEC is ever ready for the diaspora. First, it was part of our consultation with the governments that we want diaspora voting. Second, it was part of our position paper we submitted to the CRC for them to consider diaspora voting. Third, we put it in our election calendar. Fourth, it's factored in our budget. Fifth, we are in engagement with the Ministry of Justice to come up with diaspora voting regulation and registration. And fifth, we are having some technical workshop with a diaspora-based organization through the assistance of Professor Jibril Fall, so that we can put heads together and formulate some regulation for this diaspora.
Delivering the closing remarks, Commissioner Aissatou Jallow Ndour used the opportunity to raise concerns on the gender gap in politics and call for more women participation in elections as candidates and not mere supporters and voters of male candidates.
There is need for women to come together. There has to be solidarity among and between women, and that is grossly lacking because we still have this concept of pull her down syndrome, which is terrible. The least we can do is to at least support our sisters when they are interested in politics rather than throwing abusive languages against them.
The IEC officials recognize the important roles the media and CSOs can play in raising public awareness on the importance of voter registration and participation in elections and ensuring free, fair and transparent elections. At the end of the dialogue, recommendations were made in a bid to improve the ongoing electoral processes, such as the need to sustain the monthly dialogue to serve as a platform for regular information sharing and exchange ideas among electoral stakeholders. Reporting for QTV News, I am Omar P. Jallo.
The Executive Director of the Institute of Human Rights and Development in Africa, Gay Sow, Thursday told the Truth Commission that the inclusion of draconian laws in the Constitution gave former President Yahya Jammeh powers of a monarch. More in this report.
Appearing as an expert witness, Gay Sow, a former magistrate, testified on the Gambia's constitutional development and how Jammeh had used the judiciary to perpetuate himself in power. Citing the 1997 Constitution, the witness says the original draft and recommendations of the report had far better provisions than what later emerged as the 1997 Constitution, and went on to explain how the deliberate removal of certain provisions had strengthened the Jammeh dictatorship.
This is the biggest misrepresentation of the laws of this country. Would you agree?
I sure would. I mean, we have our highest court making it clear due process wasn't followed when it came to amending that provision. Supreme Court clearly saying this is null and void, but I mean, as I speak, the provision is still there.
Do you know this provision to exist in any other democratic country in the world? That gives the president the power to remove a judge?
I wouldn't say that. When we were drafting the last draft, we had access to all constitutions of the world, very searchable, very easy to use. And I can't remember finding that in the constitution of any country that calls itself a democracy, particularly in the Commonwealth.
The witness also revealed that the 1996 draft constitution provided for presidential term limits and that certain constitutional restrictions were either removed or flouted by Jammeh, paving the way for him to own and operate businesses. Jammeh, he adds, had powers of a monarch.
Business the former president was involved in, but people would say, I don't know.
He did from A to Z.
Yeah, they say
from aquaculture to zoos.
People say that, yes. Definitely.
He sold diapers, he sold uniforms. Anything that anybody would do to make money, he would do. Jai Souf, Jai.
I mean, that was made possible after that change, after that part of the Constitution was deleted.
I think if there is any change that have the most profound effect on governance in this country, it is perhaps that change.
The witness also revealed that the 1997 Constitution was amended several times with provisions including immunity clauses inserted without due process to strengthen Jammeh's grip on power. Answane Sonyasi for QTV News.
From that story, we will take our first commercial break, but still to come, we have some more local news and sports news stories as well. Do stay tuned.
Join the Gambia's fastest growing network and enjoy high-speed 4G LTE. Dial *335# to subscribe to QCell's 4G LTE service. There's no need to swap your SIM. QCell, Senior Boss. We innovate, others follow.
Welcome back, and if you're just joining us, this is QTV News. An art competition funded by Daughters for Africa in collaboration with the National Center for Arts and Culture, involving 26 participants, concluded with an award ceremony on Wednesday. The competition drew and exposed spectacular young talents who display visual art skills in portraiture. Odolamin Choi has the details.
These are finished products of fine arts, each giving a meaning in paints and colors, representing portraits of people, our society and culture. In a contest organized and funded by a non-government organization, Daughter for Africa, 26 mostly young Gambians have competitively explored their artistic skills in portraiture. At an award ceremony, Hazum Sise, the director of the Center for Arts and Culture, is happy that the contest harnessed and nurtured the raw fine arts talents in our country.
The paintings here on display so that our youth have great and promising talent in the fine arts, in this case, in portraiture. We in the NCC have always wanted to ensure that the fine arts is not left behind in any development in the arts and culture sector. This is simply because we believe that the fine arts like music, literature, theater, drama, comedy, etc. have great potential to empower youth and women and create jobs and goods for our citizens.
The contest is one component in a campaign by Daughters of Africa towards supporting the Gambia's art industry after discovering the need for this sector to grow meaningfully. Odire Igmare, the co-founder and director of the organization, is excited that the contest was a success and hopes to organize it annually and expand chances for more participants.
Living in London, I see how much people, how passionate people are for African arts. And so being in Gambia, getting to know Gambia and seeing that the arts wasn't well valued was a real surprise for us. And we decided that it had to be one of our core things that we focused on while we were here. Raising up the artists, because you can't think about your house without thinking about the arts that will be needed within that house to make it beautiful.
These young artists, with continued support, stand the chance to make a successful future for themselves in the art industry in a country whose economy relies largely on tourism and culture. A renowned Gambian artist whose work has crossed boundaries offers words of inspiration to her young colleagues.
You have to be an artist first before you start to know exactly what you're doing. So please, I beg you, please start to put the full energy and start to support the Gambia.
Each of the participants in the contest has been awarded a certificate. For the winners, the prize for the first, second and third places are $19,200, $12,800 and $6,400. I speak to the artist who topped the contest, and he tells us about his work and motivation.
Photo is the main thing that I normally focus. Like I always love to represent my culture, painting women's, like daughters, women's and daughters. It's like these are like I always love to represent my culture. Yeah, I feel great right now. I feel great because like the great thing that I always put myself like don't see yourself as worse than you are or better than you are. Like see yourself as you are. If you can do something better like these things. Like I always try to push myself harder because when people are started clapping for you, that's the time that you need to push yourself harder.
Art with its beauty can reflect a society's civilization that helps in the handing down of socio-cultural values and impressions from one generation to the other. More investment is needed to develop this area with resources and policies to attract people like these ones to take up the art with pride, joy, purpose, and as a career. Mahmoud Lamin Choi, QTV News.
Sama Cairo Federation and partner Child Fund on Thursday presented 250 bicycles to vulnerable school children in their community to help improve the performance of the students. Abibatu Sise was there at the presentation and seen our reports.
These bicycles were donated by Child Fund the Gambia as part of Sama Cairo Federation's Dream Bike project, which aims to provide vulnerable children with bicycles to ease mobility and prevent them trekking long distances to school. At the presentation, Sunkaru Jata, the Federation's manager, explained why they came up with this initiative and explains the difference having these bikes will make, including academically.
It has been observed over the years that most of the children who underperform in schools were those who travel long distances. And based on this finding, the need to mobilize resources to improve the movement or traveling of those children who have been underperforming due to long distances came into the idea. And therefore, this was what brought about the issue of distributing bicycles to children.
Ibrahim Sonko, a community mobilizer, explains the role of Child Fund, the Gambia, and Samakero Federation, and says the majority of the beneficiaries are girls because they are more vulnerable.
They are existing to help deprived, excluded, and vulnerable in education, health, and protection. And now they have come to bring bicycles for children, more especially girl child who are traveling long distance to go to school. Some of the children, the school where they are, and you look at the distance from the school and their home is very far, and some of the roads are not safe.
Ida Sow, a sponsored child and a beneficiary, thanked Child Fund and Samakero, explaining the difference getting a bicycle will make.
I want to thank the Samakero Federation, Child Fund the Gambia. This bicycle is going to help us very much in going to school. We are not going to be late, and our parents always spend a lot of money on us to pay fare and go to school. And now they are going to relax in giving us money and because of going to school.
Samakero Federation seeks to promote the well-being of children and their families in the country by supporting the needy families through children. Over the years, the Federation has provided bicycles to community associations within the Federation and continues to support deprived children within communities. For QTV News, I am Abibatu Sise.
Time to take another short commercial break, but do stay tuned as we have sports news for you.
Buy your QCell credit using your QMoney account without any hassle. Cash in any amount starting from $10 and enjoy the amazing services QMoney has to offer. With QMoney, life is easy. Visit your nearest QMoney agent to cash in or call customer care on 133. Don't forget to wash your hands with soap after handling cash. QMoney.
Welcome back, and now to sports news. The Minister of Defence on Thursday presented a significant amount of sporting materials to the Gambia Armed Forces to enhance their well-being and promote sports and sportsmanship. More in this report.
Sports and keeping fit are important for members of the armed forces. This gesture will no doubt encourage our gallant men and women in uniform to be more engaged in sporting activities. The items include jerseys, trophies, footballs, volleyballs and basketballs for various units such as the Infantry Battalion in Yundum, the Gambia Armed Forces Training School, the State Guards, the Naval Commanders and the State House Battalion. Presenting the gear, Sheikh Omar Faye, the Minister of Defense, says these materials will revive the sports in the armed forces. Adding that he recognizes the armed forces' multi-talents and their diligent efforts in their duty.
To revive the inter-services sports competition that we used to enjoy when we were younger officers in the 80s. And the armed forces have been doing tremendously well in not only being the best in peacekeeping around the world, but also we have produced some sporting professionals in all areas of the sporting arena. And you cannot talk about that unless you remember some personalities who also did great. I remember when we appointed General Langtombong Tamba, when he was a very junior officer, as Secretary of the Inter-Services Sports Committee and Chairman.
Yakuba A. Drame, the Chief of Defense Staff, acknowledges the Minister's support as sports is an essential part in the ethics of the armed forces.
Sporting and game constitute a very integral part
of what we are known for. In the military, we cannot afford to be lazy. We always engage ourselves in sporting and games activities. Why do we do that? It constitutes part of our professional ethics. An armed force that is not fit physically, mentally, cannot be considered to be competent to perform their constitutional mandate to the expectations and admiration of Gambians and non-Gambians alike. Currently, we have teams that partake in the second division from the units. Why? They excel in their performance to emerge the top list. On the basis of that, they were absorbed as part of the second division.
Commander Aliou Sane of the Gambian Navy expressed delight, saying that it was a challenge in the area of sports logistics. He expressed optimism that they will be fully prepared to engage in sports.
We have a well-prepared football team, a well-prepared volleyball team. In short, I can say that we are more than ready when it comes to sporting activities. So coming here to receive such sporting items from the Minister of Defense through the CDS, I think is a laudable achievement. So definitely, as I'm telling you, it's not only a promise, but always force is going to be our position in any competition, whether within the armed forces or outside the armed forces in the civilian population. Force is going to be our position.
The Gambia Armed Forces are very active in sporting activities in the country and has taken part in many, including football, volleyball, basketball and wrestling, among others. Ajibintu Drame, QTV News.
Before we end this bulletin of the news, let's have a quick look at our top stories. The State House has announced that President Barrow will be traveling to Dubai on a working visit. As the Gambia prepares to host the 2022 Organization of Islamic Conference, our reporter visited the OIC Secretariat to find out about the projects that are to be implemented. The TRRC hears that the inclusion of draconian laws in the Constitution of the Gambia gave former President Yahya Jammeh powers of a monarch. The Independent Electoral Commission has held its second monthly stakeholders forum. And in sports news, the Minister of Defense on Thursday presented a significant amount of sporting materials to the Gambia Armed Forces. That's all we have for you in this bulletin of the news, but don't forget to join us at 10 for another bulletin, and have a pleasant evening.